Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Dashiell Miller here from Warrior Concepts here in East Central Pennsylvania, where at the moment it's snowing. I'm not a big fan of winter anymore. So anyway, that being said, today we are diving into, in my humble opinion, into one of the most misunderstood skills in all of martial arts training. Okay, we're talking about ukemi, right? They're not just breakfalls. They're way more than just breakfalls. Okay, ukemi is often translated as breakfall. That's what that means. Now, I think they're trying to make an assumption based on ukemi, right? Uke, to receive, to accept, to transform, those kind of things, right? And then mi, body, but it's not the same. They don't use the same kanji for body like we have in like taijutsu, taijutsu, those kind of things where it's the whole body. This mi can be expanded to different types of bodies. I don't mean different shapes and different heights and all that. I mean physical body, psychological body, spiritual, emotional, right? So different context. Okay, so we're going to take a look at 3 stages of receiving, surviving, and transforming force, right? So again, we're taking a look at ukemi. Most people believe that ukemi is just rolling and falling safely. I know it was for me in the first bunch of martial arts that I took because that's what I was taught, okay? But that's only the very first layer, right? It's just the surface, okay? If you caught this week's Kuden that took place as I'm recording this 2 days ago, we're always live Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, but you can find the recordings on the podcast directories. It's always on YouTube, on our channel, Facebook, on the Kuden podcast Facebook page. How about that? Anyway, went into it much more deeply. Obviously, Kuden is big life kind of things, big principles and concepts. This gets much smaller, right? The principles and concepts that underpin the physical self-defense things. But what does that mean when we're talking about self-defense or self-protection, right? Again, there's another thing that to most people it means ducking punches, kicks, not getting shot, stabbed, hit with a club or whatever. Obviously, really important, right? But there's other areas in our life that we need to make sure are protected. Okay. So anyway, again, the way most people think of ukemi, just the first layer. True ukemi, right, in the ninja's method, the way the ninja approaches these things, right, is a method of receiving force. Right. The translation that I was given that most closely comes to a literal translation for the word ukemi is the ability to neutralize, receive and neutralize the force of the enemy's attack. Okay, who's the enemy, right? So true ukemi is a method of receiving in a way that lets you survive, adapt, and ultimately control the encounter. Okay, but it looks different at different levels. Okay, at different points in someone's training. In Ninpo-Taijutsu, ukemi develops through 3 distinct stages. Okay, and these stages, we're going to use the reference points from most of the scrolls. Okay, Shoden, Chuden, Okuden. Covered that 2 weeks ago. Right, most people look at this like it's some kind of rank structure, right? Beginner, intermediate, advanced, but that's not right either. Okay, Shoden is not just the structure of things and about mechanical structure, it's also about being late to the fight. What I mean by that is the attack is already happening. So in the case of ukemi, collapse is already occurring, okay? And then we have to do something to survive that, right? At the Chuden level, it's more about timing and energy and things that most people don't pay attention to until it's too late. This allows us to be in the moment, but actually get in front of the actual attack. In this case, getting in front of the actual collapse, right? We're catching it as it starts to happen or it's about to happen. Okuden is something all on its own. We'll touch on each of these as we go along, okay? So again, we're going to look at this from the Shoden, Chuden, Okuden framework, right? And once you understand these stages, once you really get what it's about, you'll see why, just like with all of your training, ukemi is not just a dojo skill, it's a life skill. Okay, Hatsumi Sensei has said those kind of things over and over again. He'll be teaching on something, and then he would say, it's not just a good martial arts idea, it's a good life idea. Right? Unfortunately, most people just want this stuff, right? Hopefully the rest of their life is in much better condition, right? So let's start with this. What is ukemi, right? I already started with this a little bit, but what's the real definition, okay? Ukemi is not falling, right? That's all equal with a hashtag, right? Ukemi is not falling, okay? It's not falling, okay? Uke is the management of force. It's the management of force, okay? That force could be impact, it could be pressure, it could be surprise, it could be imbalance, right? In a way that it manages this in a way that keeps you unbroken and free, okay? To be able to still move, be able to do things, that kind of thing, right? But again, what that looks like at each level is different, okay? That force can be physical, it can be structural, it can be emotional, it could be environmental, it could be financial, it could be a sudden chaos of conflict where it just all of a sudden you get a phone call, or it's a workplace violence thing. Next, you hear gunshots, or you hear a bunch of screaming and commotion or whatever. All of that, okay? Can I stay functional without collapsing? Okay, ukemi is the ninja's way of receiving what comes without collapsing, without panicking, right? Or without resisting in a way that harms you, that without reacting in a way that's like throwing gasoline on top of the fire and making the problem worse than it actually is. Okay. So again, we're going to take a look at these three stages of ukemi development and what's going in each one. I just chose 5 example kind of things. We'll kind of hint at them. I'll talk about context around them, but I want you to have 5 in each of these developmental areas to take with you. Okay. And again, if you missed Kuden, go to the YouTube channel. If you're already on the YouTube channel, then you're in the right place. Just click on the live tab in the menu bar there on the main page, right? And it'll drop you on all the live stuff. You'll see alternating Kuden, Whiteboard Wednesday, Kuden, Whiteboard Wednesday, right? That's pretty much all that goes in the live, right? So Shoden ukemi, Shoden level ukemi, right, is about impact management and survival, okay? This is about not getting broken. Okay, not getting broken. Okay, the collapse has already occurred. We're already falling. We've already been tripped. Whatever, okay? We're mid-throw. Ground's coming up fast, okay? So Shoden ukemi is the foundation, right? It's where you learn how to survive the sudden loss of balance, structure, stability, those kind of things, right? It's not crash is imminent. It's like impact from things is imminent, right? So I want to emphasize something, and I'm going to repeat this often, right? I repeat this all the time in class. If you've been around for a while, okay, if you stay around and keep revisiting these lessons, not just the recording, but me, you'll hear you'll hear these recurring themes. And this one is, as bipeds, right? We have 2 legs. We're not a 3-legged stool. We're not a 4-legged stool, right? As bipeds, we live in a constant state of shifting balance. Right? It's one of the first lessons I got from Hatsumi Sensei. Okay, constant state of shifting balance, right? What that means is we are always one surprise, one trip, slip, whatever, away from falling down. Now, the older we got, right, we don't have to think about where the foot goes. It's not like the way an infant does it or whatever. But okay, attackers rely on this kind of thing. Okay, the one thing that we don't have to worry about in ground fighting is having our balance taken, unless we're in a top mount position, in which case it can be broken. It's just not the same way, right? Every time we stand up, right, we risk falling down. Something breaks, something bumps into us, large wind gust, whatever, right? So the trick is to learn how to move our bodies in a way that we don't meet that surprise with, well, pretty much the same thing that most beginners meet it with, right? Most beginners meet surprise with tension, panic, stiffening, right? Tensing up, resistance. Sometimes it's called posting out or whatever, but this flailing kind of thing, right? Trying to catch themselves. Right? Can it work? Sure. Okay. But what it all comes down to is they're trying to fight gravity. Right? Gravity works, right? Right. So, but this is how injuries happen. That tension, that stiffness, that scrambling for things, right? This is how injuries happen, not just in a dojo, but in daily life. Okay. People trip all the time, right? Even trained martial artists. Okay. Me too. Not on a pedestal, right? Bump into a door frame or doing something, drop something. Okay. And next thing you know, if you have two small dogs, so they're trip hazards. I've got a 6-year-old grandson. He's less of a trip hazard now than he was, a couple of years ago, right? But the point here is that Shodan Uke at the Shodan level teaches a couple of things here, right? How to hit the ground without breaking, right? So in the ground, there it is, right? Without breaking, okay? How to roll safely in any direction. Okay, we're going to call this Happo Kaiten because it's shorter on these little lines I gave myself. Okay, Kaiten, rolling, Happo, 8 ways, 8 directions, but Happo ultimately means in any direction. Okay. It also teaches how to distribute impact. Okay, distribution of impact. What that means is that we're landing on muscle, not bone, broad surfaces, not narrow things. True story. When I was an Army cop, one of my partners at one of my duty stations, we were handling a not so great incident in the city. Right, we had a military installation, but because soldiers had passes and they were in the city and whatnot. So we're in the city of Freiburg, and we were backing up the German Polizei because there was an incident near one of these nightclubs where they believed that a terrorist was spotted. Somebody that matched one of these top 20, top 50 kind of list that the German police had. And so we get there, and we ended up having to handle a couple of drunk GIs and whatnot. And my partner and I, for that evening, were the only 2 serious martial artists in our entire military police unit. Okay, and the one that I was in at that time. Okay. Now, other people did their obligatory self-defense training, which we called the government 6. Right, you learn 6 techniques, and then you're certified because they can check off a block. And okay, anyway, but we did very, very different systems. Right? I did this. He did another one that used the standard slap on a fall. Okay, which I have to tell you works really, really well on a padded surface, and it can work on a more firm surface. But let me tell you where it doesn't work and where my partner found that it doesn't work. And that's on the street when you're being taken down near a curb, that little rise to step up from the road to the sidewalk, that curb, okay? Because the person he was dealing with tripped, shoved, I don't know, I was dealing with my own guy. All of a sudden I heard this yell. And here I look over, my guy had gone down, did this slapping breakfall, and his arm caught the curb. snapped his elbow, damaged his shoulder, and broke both bones right here. Okay. So we have to be careful. Do we have those? We do, but they're like last ditch kind of things. They're not the primary. But either way, right? This distribution of impact, right, across a broader surface, right? Okay, at the Shodan level, also teach how to protect the spine, the skull, the joints, those kind of things, right? So protection of the important pieces: spine, skull. What else did I say? Joints. Okay. I think during Kuden this week, I was talking about a little slip I had a couple of years ago. There was a snap freeze during the Friday morning coaching call I had with my private students. And snap freeze came in between me dropping off my grandson or somebody to work, I think. Came home, did this thing. The class lasted about an hour and a half. And then I was going to rush out for this lunch meeting. And this surprise temperature shift came in and literally put a glaze of ice on things. Okay. 15 traffic accidents like the first 5 minutes just in my local area for this thing. Anyway, I come walking out the back door and slipped. Okay. Next thing I know, I'm hitting the corners, right, of these concrete steps just off of my back porch, and broke a transverse process, one of these little side wing kind of things that come off your vertebrae that nerves come through off the spinal cord and then out to the body, right? So broke, right? The one just above the hip assembly itself, okay? Shut down my legs. And so one of the most common comments that people made was, guess your ukemi didn't work. But my ukemi did work. Okay? Because ukemi is not to make you invincible, it's to minimize damage because you can't save yourself from everything. Okay? Counterbalancing leg went up, arms shifted so they didn't bang into things, head tucked, teeth came together, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I landed on one of these things, but that was, well, I ripped off a fingernail too. It's since grown back. But I landed on this thing and it broke that, but right behind my head and neck was the top concrete step. Okay. Missed me. Okay. Because I didn't have time. When the real thing happens, you don't have time to go, don't forget, put your molars together. Don't forget, tuck your chin. Don't forget, exhale. Okay. So really important stuff, right? And then the other thing that this ukemi at this level teaches, right? I know everybody's like, no, ukemi at that level teaches you how to do like breakfalls and rolls, and no. The breakfalls and rolls and whatnot are teaching you things. Taijutsu, how to adapt the body to the condition you're dealing with. Okay. So the other thing that's being taught at this level is how to stay calm during structural collapse. Right? How to not go and tense up and then get broken. Okay. I mentioned being a military cop. During my law enforcement career, one of the biggest things that I noticed was how drunk drivers who cause traffic accidents very often walk away from the accident, where the non-drunk, the sober person in the other vehicle, or maybe even in their own vehicle, right, do not. Right. And it took a little bit of time for me to kind of track this down. But the conclusion I came up with was the inebriated person is uber relaxed. And so while they might get bruised and bumped and whatnot, for the most part, they don't break. It's the people that go brace against the dashboard, lock onto the steering wheel, shove a foot into the brake so the leg is straight, right? Those kind of things. Those are the people who get hurt, right? So for myself and my students, we started working these things into our training. Should we be in a vehicle and there's an impending accident and we've done everything we can, at the moment we realize impact is imminent, relaxed everything we can while maintaining awareness. Okay? And it worked for me. couple of years back, my car slid across some ice through what was supposed to be a guardrail, but our Department of Transportation forgot to put it back, and I went off a cliff. My car rolled. Okay? So all I had was a bruise on one side, the flank where I hit the door assembly, that door handle assembly kind of thing that's there, and I bit a cheek, biting down to clench my molars. Okay, so I had a couple of opportunities to work this stuff out, right? Anyway, so this level removes something important, the fear of falling. Okay, it removes the fear of falling, right? And it transmutes it into something else, where as soon as we realize we're going down, we just accept it and we're willing to go to the ground. The people that try to skate it going through training, I don't like rolling, I don't like breakfalls. Nobody gives a shit. Okay, I certainly don't. And the reason I don't is because the universe doesn't. The bad guy doesn't, right? The reason why your attacker is going to throw you, trip you, or whatever is because everybody they've ever done it to before banged into the ground and the ground helped. Gravity helped. The impact of the ground helped. Okay? That's why they're going to do it to you. So if we've skated by on those requirements, then one of my teachers used to call this being an accomplice to your own ass kicking, because that's what's going to happen. Okay? It's not the fall that'll hurt you. It's that sudden impact with the ground at the bottom. And it's not the dojo. There are no mats, no tatami, whatever. Could be a little rock that's right there. Could be a bolt that somebody left on the ground when they were changing a tire or fell off a trash truck, whatever. Could be that curb. Right? It's not the same. All right. So again, there's this life piece to it, right? Slips, trips, ice, wet floors, sports collisions, right? Running into somebody when you're involved in sports, whatever. Missing a step, right? You see somebody trip up steps, okay? Shodan ukemi is what prevents catastrophic injury, okay? But it's just the first layer, okay? Speaking of sports, students consistently tell me that they've become more agile, less afraid to move, more confident, like diving for a ball, doing things that typical players don't, especially if they're involved in something like volleyball or whatever, where there's not a whole lot of padding, right? What else do I have down here? Better at regaining balance, less vulnerable to accidents and injury, that kind of thing, right? So Shodan ukemi is not optional, right? It's where the path begins, right? It's the surface layer, okay? So again, just a place to start, okay? So Shodan level ukemi. It's mostly mechanical stuff, but it's the thing that most people think of when they think of ukemi. It's the rolling, it's the breakfalls. It might even include leaping, whatever. It's all those things, okay? It's not that it's not that, but if that's how we're defining ukemi, then our definition is incomplete, okay? Because it doesn't speak to the principles and concepts that can then be grown in the upper levels toward mastery, okay? So, well, a lot of people, again, we've covered this. I think last week we did Shodan, Chuden, Okuden. I focused here, but I had to put these things into context. And people often see these things as a rank progression. This is beginners, this is intermediate, this is advanced. And it's not that we don't give this to beginners, and it's not that this isn't the next transition or whatever, but it's not that. Because if it were that, people would think that the rolling here is basic, and then we do a little bit more trickery here, and then that's really secret advanced rolling up here. No, rolling is here, okay? Rolling gets mixed in with some other things here, like breakfalls and rolls get combined. Leaping into a roll, leaping coming out of a roll, those kind of things. Being able to use a weapon, going in the middle of a roll, coming out. One of the things I have my students do when they're doing shuriken throwing is being able to throw a shuriken as they're entering the roll, not throw it, then roll, right? As they go, right? That way somebody's watching this body roll, and then all of a sudden this thing hits them. Being able to come out of a roll, throwing the shuriken as a part of the exit of the roll, not come out of the roll and then throw it. And then, like with side rolls and whatnot, being able to throw the shuriken mid-roll. So while they're seeing this flurry of motion, I don't see the shuriken come flying out at, right? Things like that, picking up a weapon while you're rolling, coming out of a roll, entering a roll, that kind of stuff, right? So that's right. But up here, things change. Okay. So what is Chuden? Okay, Chuden is force absorption and neutralization. Remember I said the definition of ukemi is the ability to receive and neutralize the force of the attack. Okay, so this is force absorption and neutralization. What does that mean, right? It means transforming pressure before you fall. Okay, so this is transforming pressure before the fall. Here, this is collapse. This is surviving the collapse. This is late. You're already falling. You got to do something to minimize damage. Here, we're going to transition. We're going to transform that pressure before we fall, before the collapse occurs. Turn it into something else. Okay. There are things in here also where there's a bridge, right? So we hit, but we don't stay there. A break fall turns into a roll, okay? Or we leap, and as we land, right? Or we leap from a higher height, right? And if we just tried to land like the superheroes in the movies, right? Blow our hips apart, right? So it's a way to transition one type of force into something else. It's about energy. It's about timing, those kind of things, okay? So once you learn how to survive impact, then again, we move into Chuden, right? Middle level training. This is the level where you learn how to absorb force without needing to fall at all, right? And again, if you did fall, how to transition that from a falling force into a rolling force so that you're not jammed up in that position for a second or 3 or 10 minutes or whatever, okay? So again, this includes things like riding off strikes, right? Riding off strikes, kicks, those kind of things. Allowing structure to flex and adapt, right? So I know correct posture and whatnot, but we might have to, if somebody's trying to throw me, if I stay the way my body's normally built, or I tense up my legs, I'm going to come off my heels. Okay. Well, if I'm going to come off my heels, I'm going to come off my heels on my terms. Okay. So one of the things I can do is shove my knees so far forward, you're not gonna be able to see it here, but if you're in for the Friday masterclass, you'll see it, right? If I shove my knees so far forward, my body's falling back, I shove my knees so far forward that my heels come up and I'm on the balls of my feet and my toes, right? Then I can put those things back, right? I can't lean that far back without gravity taking control of me, but what I can do is move in a way that shifts my center of balance forward and then brings it back. Okay. So again, writing things off. What is allowing the structure? Okay. So flexing and adapting, not adapt. Duh. Blending with pressure. In the Shinden Furoryu, there is a kata. It's really simple. It moves. Okay. Learning how to do it properly, where you're doing standing ukemi. The kata is called shizen. Okay. And the gist of it is the uke grabs you and either shoves or pulls you as they grab. And you need to drift with it. Okay. To these folks, where it's always about falling or rolling or you're already on the ground, okay, this makes no sense. Well, that's not ukemi. It's not a break fall. You're right. It's neutralizing the force of the attack. It's not being late. It's not being late and then stumbling to try to catch your feet. It's drifting with it. So he got what he wanted. He got a push. He moved me to another location, one way or the other, but he didn't get what he wanted. He didn't get my structure broken. He didn't get me off balance. Okay. Softening the body in the precise moment of impact. So this is actually taking hits and not being damaged. And I don't mean like, go ahead, hit me. Not that kind of thing. It's the opposite of that, right? So softening the body right? To take hits, right? Do we do that voluntarily? We might, but this is not the same. This is not born of the same mindset of the guy that's like, you can't hurt me. And then they stiffen up and, take this shot and whatnot. It's not that. This is born of the knowledge that in a bad situation, you're going to get hit. He's going to land something. The trick is not to not get hit. The trick is to not get hit so badly that the TV gets turned off, or you get a debilitating injury that shuts you down and then you can just stomp your skull into the ground. Okay? You're going to get hit. It's an attack. If you don't, yay. Okay? But this training is not supposed to make us invincible. I know people use those terms all the time. Yeah. Okay. So it's recognizing that you might. And then later on, we can stand closer to where, right, in the upper levels, we let him make contact and we ride that off. So his brain registers a shot. But what's happened is the target drifted, but my weapons are still here. He's following his fist. And so he's registering a hit. Okay? At this level, we have to understand there's a difference between getting hit and getting hurt, like as in damaged. Because that hurts to an extent because nerve endings are crushed. Okay? They're impacted. Okay? But it's not about avoiding impact. Right? It's about not getting damaged to the point where you can't operate or you can't operate well. Right? So, and the last one is redirecting force through footwork and body management. Taisabaki. I'm just going to write down Taisabaki. Okay, so Taisabaki, body management. Okay. I know I said footwork and body management. Footwork is an aspect of body management, but so is arm work. So is how your eyes are, what they're doing in there, because that helps you gauge distance and the right angle and all those kind of things, right? So at this stage, at the Chuden stage, the body becomes less rigid, less reactive, right? More responsive. There's a difference between reacting and responding, right? Less startled or prone to being startled, right? More fluid and more adaptable, okay? So this is where ukemi begins to integrate with Taisabaki, right? Okay, so because you're not only absorbing force, right? You're changing alignment, you're changing distance, angling, timing, those kind of things. It's about adaptability, okay? The ability to adapt, right? You can always tell when somebody can't adapt, right? Something happens and they default straight to anger or straight to panic or straight to, not just in a dojo, not just in a self-defense situation. That's their default in life when they get surprised or they get overwhelmed or whatever. Okay. So you got to be careful because we don't get this right. The rank can go up, colors can change, but we just get really, really good at Shodan level stuff. But we confuse it with, no, I'm at a higher level. No, you're just really, really good at stuff at the beginner level. Natsumi Sensei talked about this. He called it perpetual white belts. Okay, regardless of belt color, rank, number, whatever. Okay, so this has massive implications, right, in daily life. Right, just talked about a couple of them, but Chuden Ukemi helps you with things like helps you regain balance after a slip. You ever walk into a convenience store or whatever, they just mop the floors, and you're wearing a certain type of shoe or whatever. Okay, or how about this one? Right, somebody dropped a receipt or some small piece of paper or something on the ground or on the floor, and you step on it and it slides. Okay. Right? That kind of thing, right? This allows you to recover from being bumped in a crowd. Right? Now, physically, you could be knocked off balance. In a minute, we're going to talk about the other parts of this that collapse or get broken because we're getting bumped and jostled around. Okay? This allows us to avoid a fall after a sudden collision, right? Or to stabilize ourselves on uneven or slippery surfaces, those kind of things. Like I said, when I first started this episode, it's snowing outside, right? It's wintertime, right? I have some students, we wear socks on a hardwood floor. Okay. Rarely do we break out the mats. They're just for beginners to start learning how to roll, right? But eventually they need to learn to roll body contact with the ground, because nobody's going to whip out a go-go gadget mat out there if they get jumped. Okay. So, but we wear socks, same reason that we wear indoor tabi, sock-like tabi in Japan on tatami, right? No, we don't wear jikatabi or shoes because that'll mess up the tatami. Okay, I'll buy that. There's always a mundane reason, but there's always a principle-based reason as well for everything. And on the light side of training, always. Okay, so what is that? If I wear socks on a surface that it's easy to slip on, I learned very, very quickly to soften my hips, my knees, and my ankles, and to soften the muscles in the bottoms of my feet. I'm in socks, right? My feet, I have to stiffen up my feet to slide a foot across the floor, right? Students learn very, very quickly how to adjust their legs so the sliding stops. So if they can do that in here, they're less likely to slide on ice or things like that out there. Okay. Or if they do slip, catch very, very quickly. Okay. All right. So again, at this stage, you're no longer just surviving, right? You're neutralizing incoming force. You're living to the principle of ukemi, not these saving skills, right? The salvation skills, right? Of when we failed to absorb or to neutralize force, and we're being taken. Okay. All right. Okuden, Kamae, right? Okuden. This is not beginner, intermediate, advanced, right? The Sho and Shoden is not the same as the Sho and Shodan. The Sho and Shoden is the same kanji as the Sho or Jo in Jodan no Kamae or Daijodan no Kamae, upper level. Okay. In the Gyokoryu, right? In the Kotoryu, it's Shoden, Chuden, Okuden. In the Gyokoryu, it's Jodyaku no Maki, scroll, right? Churyaku no Maki, Geiryaku no Maki. Even though the name is the same, or the name is different, the principle is the same. Okay. Yes, there's kata there, but they're not there for the same reasons. Okay. These are the highest level principles that we have to learn. It's also the things that beginners have to learn first because they're more prone to falling down or getting knocked out. So teach that first, right? Then we learn to ride things off. We learn to transition it, right? And then we learn to get rid of shit that would cause us to tense up and allow him to throw me, okay? So, but this crosses over some other boundaries here. We're talking about ukemi, right? So okuden level. Oku here does not mean high. I know people see O and they think big or big void or no. This oku means deep. Going deeper. We're going inside. We're doing. Okay, it's almost like an ura flip. Okay, so at okuden level, right? For ukemi, we're looking at transformational and preemptive ukemi. Okay, we're controlling the fight before it starts. Right? So this is preemptive control. Okay. So if this guy's moving in and he looks like he's a grappler, and I'm probably going to go to the ground. Right? Give you two examples for doing that. One, I'm going to navigate and make him have to follow me to get to a point that if I do go to the ground, I'm not going to fall on a curb and crack my back. I'm not going to, be falling on broken glass if I'm in a city and I'm in the middle of one of these parking lots or whatever, right? Or as he's moving in and I get this sense that I'm probably going to be taken down, okay, I'm going to do a break fall soft version of it. So I'm not crashing and having to survive. I literally just lower myself onto the ground. I pull my clip knife and I wait for him. Right? Because at this level, what I just did was flip the script. Right? I'm receiving the force, but I'm neutralizing the force. Okay? The force that's impending is he's going to bum rush me, snag my legs, drive his body into me, and drive me to the ground. So what's the problem? The problem is mine. How do I not go to the ground, or how do I not get broken going to the ground? But I've already assessed the situation, and there's a really good chance that I'm going to go to the ground. Great. So I'm going to go to the ground first. Now I'm going to pull my clip knife that I always carry. And now the problem is his. Because he has to figure out how to get on me without losing body parts. It's not the same. It's not tricky beginners, trickier intermediate, oh, super secret trick. No. It's a whole different way of thinking. Whole different way of thinking. Okay? So, Okuden Ukemi is the highest stage, right? And it's the least understood. It sounds so counterintuitive. Okay? This is where Ukemi becomes strategic, not imperative, not, well, that's cool. I can turn things around pretty good. It becomes strategic, right? It becomes preemptive. Talked about that, right? Preemptive. That means we go first. I haven't got used to the train yet. Anyway, it becomes perceptual. The Okuden level, at this level, it's mechanical. At this level, it's dynamics. At this level, it's perceptual. And it requires a high degree of clarity that I'm actually seeing what is actually there and not what I'm assuming is there. Right? A while back, I did a lesson on the Kyujutsu Tenkai, the flipping of truth and falsehood. And everybody wants to learn that, right? Because it'll trick the bad guy and all that. But most people have no idea how much they do it to themselves. So if I can't discern truth from falsehood, right? Reality from assumption, and I tend to jump the gun and be assumptive and guess my way through life and all that. You can call that truth. You can call it whatever you want. You can call a dog's tail a leg too, but it doesn't make it a leg. Okay. So really, really important. Okay. So perceptual. This is where I start getting scribbly. Right. Becomes psychological. Yes, I'm abbreviating psycho. I don't mean that way. I'm just abbreviating psychological. And it becomes profoundly efficient. Right? Everybody tends to focus on effectiveness. A hammer to your skull is effective. But it's not as efficient as, let's say, moving as this guy comes in and kind of bumping him a little bit so his head bumps into the wall. Efficient means where it's related to energy conservation. Okay? I'm not expending a whole lot of energy to make that happen. Okay? So at this level, you transform the attacker's force into your tactical advantage. Okay? This is the ability to flip things when he comes at you and he's already the stronger, the faster, the more forceful, the bigger, right? You know how to use that against him. I know everybody talks about it in the martial arts, except that like in most competitions, you're teamed up rank for rank, gender for gender, size for size, strength, age, all kinds of things to make it a fair fight. But in a self-defense situation, when I was out, again, in my cop days, growing up, right? Rarely, if ever, do bad guys attack you because it's a fair fight. And nobody, unless he wants death by ninja or death by cop or whatever, looks at you from across the street and goes, I think he can kick my ass. I'm going to go attack him. Nobody does that. But people train as though that's what they're going to be dealing with. Because they got some training, they're going to be Joe Cool Jack shit. Pride goes before the fall, yeah? Right? So again, at this level, we transform the attacker's force into our tactical advantage. You read balance shifts before they happen. Okay, where's this weight now? What does he have to do to get me? There's going to be a balance. There's going to be a weight shift, right? I've watched one of the reasons why we do Kama evasion with or without Uke Nagash, right? A couple of times off his first couple of attacks before we jump into things, right? It's not like the kata, right? Here's a punch and then we kill him. Here's a punch or a second punch and then we kill him. No. That's indicative of like sizing him up. So whether I touch him or don't touch him, one of the first things I'm going to do is pay attention to how he attacks. Because then when I decide I'm going to move, I'm going to choose an angle that forces him to kind of overshoot it a little bit. Now I can exploit that balance, okay? That shift, okay? You can reposition so subtly that the attacker never gets a clean line, right? So instead of standing nose to nose, toe to toe, and waiting for it and then moving off angle, we just do the Tagagi Yoshin thing where everything is always off angle, right? I'm either beside him. Well, who's going to let you be beside him? Okay. If somebody's looking for a target, we're looking to get, surprise me. I can look like I'm not paying attention and like I'm just walking past him. Remember the knockout game videos? Okay. And then there's that moment where when he goes to take the shot and I sidestep and he overshoots it, right? Let's see. At this level, we sense intent before movement begins. This is called sen, right? Sen means to initiate. Gono sen is like our water movement, or what most people are used to seeing with like 70% of the Bujinkan stuff, where you move away. It's late. Gono sen is late. Gono sen, I initiate my movement upon his attack, which means I'm late. Okay. Sen no sen, which is something we're going into deeply at the upcoming Daikomyo side we're doing next month, 9th to 11th of January, if you happen to catch us in time. If not, well, you missed it. Okay. Sen no sen means I initiate my movement upon his intent to attack. Okay. It's not the same. Right. Let's see. Repossession subtly. Your body dissolves and reforms around attacks without effort. I just demonstrated this during last night's class. I had one of my Shidoshi punch in, and I just kind of rolled around it, right? So he made contact, but he was gliding through. And if I can do this, anybody skinnier than me can do it, right? But just around it, and his head was right here, right? Because that's the way it works, right? So this is why so many Shihan and senior teachers in Japan describe what they say about Soke as he got older. Okay. What they say is things like Soke moves slower, softer, right? And yet we still couldn't hit him. Okay. Often the fighter mentalities, right, in the Bujinkan, will look at that and go, see, that wouldn't really work on the fight because they're just like aiming to miss him. No, they're not. And I'm not having this argument. I have seen Soke's uke, or master teachers uke, get the shit beat out of them for purposely missing. Okay. So no, they didn't purposely miss. Okay. So what was it then, right? It wasn't speed. He moved slower. It wasn't muscle, right? It wasn't athleticism. Right? Anybody remembers like him last year or 2, 3 before he retired, right? He'd come out and demonstrate some stuff, and then he would like go over to that little stool that they had set up for him, and he'd sit down, stand up, he kind of move the joints a little bit, then he'd go, okay, then he'd do the next thing. But that wasn't the telltale, because the adrenal response, I have experience with this. The adrenal response can have the teacher doing more in class than they can do when that adrenal response goes away, right? And so going to his office to get rank processed and watching him move after class was over and just being absolutely floored by the fact that he was just shuffling like a little man, and every movement there was a grunt, right? Because, but that also speaks to a higher level of ukemi where we accept age, we accept that pain and whatnot because shit still needs to get done. We accept it, we write it off, right? And we figure out how to do things more efficiently, still effectively, right? So we're not cheating it, we're not dropping things, whatever. We learn that leverage works way better than strength. Timing and rhythm work way better than speed, all that kind of stuff, because you don't have it. That's how a senior teacher or a soke, right, outmaneuvers a 20-something that has all that energy. They have all that speed. They have all that strength. It's not a one-to-one, right? But this is also why people drop out at a certain age, because I can't do what I used to do. Yeah, I know. Isn't that cool? Now, Nijitsu's lessons will actually make sense to you. Because when I was in my 20s, I heard efficiency. I'm like, yeah, efficiency. Let's go. Right? My 50s, tell me about this efficiency shit again. Okay? I'm coming up on 63. So if I can do it with this body and arthritis and okay. All right. So it wasn't those things. What was it? Well, it was Okuden level ukemi. Okay. It's the ability to receive the intent behind the attack. By the time you're receiving the attack, you're way down here. When you're picking up, when you're sensing the impending attack, you're here. When you're reading the intent behind the attack that he hasn't even thrown yet, you're up here. Okay? So you don't just receive the intent behind it, you transform that entire situation before force is even delivered. We're going to be, again, Daikomyo side, we're working with the Gyokko-ryu 0 point of resistance principle. Some people just call it ku, whatever, right? Where I'm going to be teaching on how to catch the body or parts as they're reaching out to be strong, but there's a state when the body's putting things in position to be strong, but it's not strong. And we can catch that, everything changes. Just covered that with a state trooper I have as a student the other morning, and cool stuff. Anyway, right? So this is the level where students tell me, Sensei, I know what you're doing, right? Like they know the thing. My upper level guys, my Shidoshi and whatnot, right? Right in the middle of a technique, right? They'll chuckle because I catch them, and they'll chuckle. And other students kind of look like, why are you laughing? Right? And they'll go, I know exactly what he's doing. I just can't stop it when he's doing it. Right? So this is taking advantage of things like perceptual gaps mentally, right? Emotional shifts, stuff like that, right? Uke Nagash taking on a whole new meaning, right? Tai Sabaki takes on a whole new meaning, right? So again, I know what he's doing. I just can't do anything to stop it, right? Because of when it's being done. Okay. And I know for a lot of people, this sounds woo-woo. I get it. Shit sounds woo-woo here. Shit sounds, a lot of this stuff sounded woo-woo here. So maybe up here, it's just different. Okay. So, and that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. Right? Timing, spacing, intention, perception, strategic ukemi, right? This is where ukemi becomes the art of controlling chaos. Okay? Because life doesn't get less chaotic. Okay? The better you get, trust me, the more the naysayers come out, more enemies than you ever thought you'd have, anonymous ones, okay, just come out of the woodwork. Okay, for all kinds of reasons. Okay, they need to be the guy. They need to be right. Their way needs to be the right and only way. Whatever, right? They're just an angry little fucking troll. But whatever. Okay, whatever it is. Okay, that's why some people just decide that they're going to accept a certain level in life, and because most people leave them alone, right? But all we're doing is trading in one set of problems and things for others. But the better we get at this, life gets easier and more successful and whatnot, and it becomes easier to write off those guys, okay? Because we can read who's a shitty troll and who might show up at my door. Who can I say something to that could re-educate them and go, look, here's what I'm looking at. And they might not kind of take that, but it'll diffuse them. Who do I just not respond to at all? Because they need something to feed off of, right? And who, if I say the wrong thing, even if I just, okay, thanks for playing, right? They might actually show up in my town at my dojo. And even if they can't take me, I got to worry about my wife. I got to worry about my grandson. I got to worry about, right? So anyway, the point here is that life will push you, okay? Ukemi is how you stop from breaking. It's how you prevent the breaking, right? This is where ukemi connects to something much larger, okay? And that is that in the martial arts, we've got this attacker, but we all know that there are attackers all over the place. Some are intentional, some are accidental. They're just not freaking paying attention. Some mean well, right? They're going to try to get in your way, get you to quit, all kinds of stuff because they love you. They don't want you to hurt yourself, whatever. Other ones, they don't want to see you succeed. Okay? It's life. It's life. Okay? Life will shove you, right? Life will sweep your legs, right? Life will hit you with force you didn't see coming. Okay? Most people tense up, resist, get angry, panic. In short, they collapse, right? Or they just flat out break. Okay? Ukemi teaches you how to bend without breaking, right? How to go to the ground safely if you have to go to the ground, how to regain balance instantly, okay? How to absorb and redirect pressure, whatever that pressure is, okay? How to remain centered when life is hard. Okay? This is why ukemi is not just for martial artists. Okay? It's for anyone who wants to move through life with more confidence, resilience, right? That's the ability to be stretched and pulled and whatnot and be able to spring back to the same shape or to be in a better condition, right? And who wants more power. Okay? All right, so on Friday, right, as usual, there's the URL, right? We're doing a special masterclass, right? We're going to go deeper. That's where I'm actually going to be demonstrating stuff. And Friday's class, we're going to be staying in here, okay? So I will be mentioning some things from here, but we need technique to make it kind of clear, right? So Chuden and Okuden level skills that let you neutralize force while standing. Nothing we do on Friday will be the typical thing that most people think of where you're being taken to the ground and you're saving yourself that way. Okay. It's all standing ukemi, right? It's this other side of things, right? So you don't lose structure, you don't lose balance, or you regain it very, very quickly, and you don't lose tactical position. Okay. So if you ever wanted to learn how to write off strikes, how to dissolve under pressure, right? Dissolve the force of things, right? How to absorb force without collapsing, right? How to avoid impact, right? Before it reaches you, right? Not evade, but evasion is a type of ukemi. We can understand what ukemi really is, right? But some things you can't avoid, and some things in the upper levels, right? You don't want to, right? Instead of trading shots from over here and hoping he gets close enough, right? We can bait him, let him get close enough, and now we're inside. Okay. So anyway, Friday's masterclass is going to show you how to do that. Again, a couple of drills, a couple of techniques to get people started. All right. So anyway, I'll try to get to all the comments and whatnot that tend to come in during these things. But Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So thank you for joining me for this week's Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Remember, ukemi is not a stunt. It's not acrobatics. I know what it can look like, right? It's not gymnastics. It's the first and the last skill of the warrior's protective path, right? Check out Kuden. I talked about the very first ukemi we're wired with at birth, okay? But either way, ukemi, right? Train it well, train it completely, right? Everything else will become easier, okay?